A while ago, I made this video on the Burson Conductor 3. Now, this is a DAC, a preamp, and a headphone amp. And what's unique about this piece is that it allows you to change op amps inside so that you can fine-tune the sound. You can change the sound by changing op amps. Now, the sad part is that because I reversed the directions of the op amps, I blew it. And Burson, the company, saw the video and they're like, Thomas, you idiot, would you like us to send you some op amps so that you can try the other ones that you blew? And I'm like, okay, sure, send me some. Now, while I was chatting with them, they mentioned, Thomas, oh, by the way, we're about to launch this DAC, this Composer 3. Would you like to give it a try? And finally, I say, okay, sure, send it to me. Now, once I got it, I filmed it, the unboxing part, and then right away I dropped it off to my friend whom I'll call Mr. Vintage. So for this video, Mr. Vintage and Mr. Kanta also helped me evaluate the unit. The reason is because they also tried the SMSL M400 DAC and the Topping D90 DAC that I recently reviewed. So I figure it'd be nice to get their opinion also on this DAC so that we can talk about it. How does the 3 DAC compare? So about a week later or two, I went to pick up the Burson Composer 3. Mr. Vintage, he said, Thomas, this is the best DAC under $1,000. I'm like, oh, come on, again? Another amazing best DAC? You know, there's only so many times I can say stuff like that, giant killer, endgame DAC, whatever, before people give me the middle finger. Like I said, the SMSL M400 is amazing. I said the Topping D90 is amazing. And now you're telling me this is like the best DAC under $1,000? What do I do? So today, let's talk about what makes this DAC amazing. Dennis from Burson told me, I'm going to mix the op amps for you. I'm like, what? You can do that? You see, if you open up the unit, you're going to see 4 op amps. So usually you would match the whole set, like 4 Vivid models or 4 Classic models. Now I'm going to put on screen here the difference between the 2 op amps. And when he told me he's going to mix it, I'm like, wow, that reminds me of what Mr. Vintage, my friend, who only plays with vintage gear, told me recently. You know, when you play with tubes, don't just think of having the same matching set of tubes. You can also mix and match tubes to get this specific sound you're looking for. So this reminds me of that. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. The reason why they use 4 dual op amp is for channel separation and also to lower the output impedance. So when the output impedance is really low, it's easy to match with any power amp you connect it directly to. Their output impedance is actually only 10 ohms. Now usually DACs are about 75 ohms. Well, this one's 10 and 25 depending if you're using the pre-out or the DAC, because you can also use it as a preamp. Next, this DAC has 2 gain levels. So for those of you who have problem matching a DAC with your active speakers, this is a good choice then. Because I noticed this in the comment section of my other video, the Topping D90 and the SMSL M400, where people are having issues matching the DAC when they connect it directly to their active speakers. So this Burson Composer DAC uses the ESS Sabre 9038 chip. And I get asked sometimes, how does it compare to, let's say, the AK4499? And the truth is, I don't care. Because if you put 10 DACs in front of me and you start asking me to guess which one uses the ESS DAC, I don't know. If you take 2 DACs that uses the same ESS DAC chip, you know, it's possible to make them sound completely different. So for me, it's not the DAC chip that's important, but rather how they implement the output stage that's more important. Now this DAC comes with 4 Vivid op amps, and my recommendation is that if you do buy it, buy 2 more Classic. Or actually buy 4 more Classic, so you can swap around, you can mix and match, you can try different combinations because it changes the sound. It has true XLR output, It has Bluetooth 5.0, aptX HD. It has an optical, coaxial, USB input. My only grip is that the USB is really small, so I can't use my own fancy USB cable. So for the whole evaluation period, I was using coaxial. It supports DSD512, and as I mentioned before, it can be used as a digital preamp, and it has a few filters to change the sound a little bit. I'm going to put up on screen here this conversation I had with Burson, so you can read up on it and what makes this DAC special. So all you have to do is just pause it, read it, and then continue. Now, regarding how it sounds, now keep in mind that the unit I receive has two Vivid op-amp and two classic op-amp. So when it comes to the top end, it is detailed, sharp, but not overly sharp. The topping D90 is actually sharper, as well as the Guster X26. Now for some people, this is a big welcome because you don't want it to be too analytical too. If you compare to, let's say, the Guster X26, it's actually more analog sounding, this Burson DAC. It is not as smooth as the SML M400. It is more closer to the topping D90 in terms of detail, micro details. So for some people, this is actually a good balance. Now this is important because when your DAC is not ultra transparent, ultra sharp, it allows you to listen to more different kind of recordings. It's more forgiving when it comes to bad recordings. So it's just a question of what you want. Now when it comes to mid-range, the whole presentation is actually pretty neutral. Compared to the topping D90, the topping D90 is actually a bit warmer. The Guster X26 is a bit leaner. So I was having a chat with my friend Mr. Vintage, and we're talking about when you have a clean neutral mid-range, instrument sounds correct. Now I don't play instruments. The only instrument that I hear like in real life ever is probably guitar, because my brother plays the guitar. But Mr. Vintage is somebody who plays instrument, so he has that as reference, right? A lot of us, you think it has to be in reference to the recording studio. My friend Mr. Vintage has a different view in that sense. He said, does it sound like the real instrument that I used to play? So if tonally it sounds correct, for him it is correct. And because the mid-range is neutral, you don't have that over chestiness when it comes to male vocal. Female vocal, you won't find it overly thin. Now, for me, myself though, I personally prefer a little warmer presentation. And that's why my XSL E28 it leans more towards that side. It really comes down to a question of taste. Now, I can truly appreciate the Burson because when I listen to instruments, I'm like, whoa, this sounds really good. The attack, the space, everything just sounds very good. The bass is strong, it's tight, and it's not overly exaggerated. One of the complaints I have sometimes with DACs is that some of the DACs, man, when it comes to bass, it's a bit loose, or there's just not enough impact. So when it comes to the Burson, it is equivalent to the topping D90 as well as the SMSL when it comes to bass impact. The soundstage is good. I would say what separates it from the topping D90 is that there's more air in the soundstage. And that's one thing I noticed when I was doing quick A/B tests between this and the topping D90. I feel like there's more air in between the instruments. And also, I find that it is a little bit more analog sounding when compared to the topping D90. For this video, we didn't actually spend a lot of time with this Burson DAC, and the reason is because they were hoping that I can make this video before their official launch, and I'm like, okay, sure, I'll give you guys a hand. So when I gave it to Mr. Kanta, he didn't get a chance to A/B test it against the topping D90. The only Mcintosh gear he had was the MAC 6700 integrated amp. And all he can tell me is that when he A/B tests this Burson DAC against the built-in DAC of the MAC 6700, he said easily I can tell it is better than the built-in DAC. It sounds more real. Now keep in mind, yes, built-in DACs are usually not the best, but don't forget the MAC 6700 is over $6,000, that integrated amp. So it doesn't come with a cheap DAC inside. So I want to quickly talk about endgame DAC. And what I mean by that in the thumbnail. Endgame is something that you buy that you feel the performance has reached a certain point that you have no more desire to change it for a very long time. Now, what is an endgame DAC is different for everyone. Everything in life is relative. So people that bothers the hell out of me are the people that go like, ho, 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 you think $4,000 DAC is an endgame DAC? Have you not seen my $20,000 DAC? When I see people like that, I feel like smacking them on the head. Because I'm sure somebody else out there will go like, ho, 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 have you seen my $100,000 DAC? So if you look at the gear that I have, let's say the power amp I have a Moon W5.3. Can I afford something more expensive? Absolutely. I have a lot of power amps that can outperform this Moon that I've tried at my home. But the reason why I chose the Moon, it has the right sound that I like, and the price I pay versus the performance is perfect for me. So that's why I have not changed this Moon amp for a very long time. Same thing for my Exosound E28. By definition, that is my endgame DAC, my endgame amp, because I've been keeping them for a very long time. Now today's DAC, I think for most people can be considered endgame. After you put it in your system, you don't have that desire wanting to change to another DAC anymore. Are there better DACs out there? Absolutely. But for the price, this probably is one of the best if you like that kind of sound. And this is true also for the SMSL M400, the Topping D90, as well as the Guster X26, right? It all comes down to a question of budget. Everybody's budget is different. I think most people, 60% of my audience can afford if they eat a lot of instant noodles. Now, the reason why I'm confident in saying that this DAC is good enough for a lot of people is because I've had them tested in many high-end systems. For example, recently I bought this Guster X26 to Mr. Kev's home. I call him Mr. Kev because he has the Kev Reference 5 speaker. And he A/B tested it against his Burson BA3 DAC. And does it perform better than his Burson? No, absolutely not. And I never claimed that in all these videos, right? I always said that it's almost there, but it's not there. For some people, they will pay a lot more for that extra 10% of performance. Could be 5, could be 20, whatever you call it. But having said that, Mr. Kev did mention to me, sure, it does not perform as well as my Burson because it's a bit more, less analog, is a bit more brighter, sharper, and he prefers the Burson over the Guster X26. He, however, recognized that this is a fantastic DAC, the Guster X26. Especially for the price, man, how are you going to beat that? And I am very confident if I brought the Burson DAC over, he will also recognize that is amazing. And in fact, I think the Burson DAC might impress him more than the Guster in his specific system. Because the Kev R5, reference 5, sorry, is really revealing. And sometimes the Guster being really detailed, too much of a good thing is actually not a good thing. So I would say even the Burson DAC in this case is a better match in his system. It's just that I don't have a lot of time, else I would have taken this Burson DAC over and see how it performs in his system. So with that said, I'll end the video by reminding everyone, please have a bit of common sense when I use words like giant killer, endgame, game changer, right? Everything is relative. And for me, these few DACs I have in my possession, it's probably one of the top performer, assuming you like the more neutral type of presentation. Okay, so with that said, I'll see you guys next time.
Movement so graceful, wildcat in the jungle with dangerous claws. Movement she anticipates, a sight set on her prey. Like stars in the darkest night, crystallized, fascinating. If you wanna stay alive, if you don't wanna be her prey, don't stand in her way. Run, run, run away. Crystallize, 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 watching her prey. Crystallize, 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 fascinating. movement so graceful. Wildcat in the jungle with dangerous claws. Movement she anticipates, a sight set on her prey. Like stars in the darkest night, crystallized, fascinating.